I will talk a little bit about the green shores and how they affect the water quality. People love to live by the water. Lake Okanagan's population increase is really one of the reasons is because they all want to move by the water. However, the edge habitats along the water shores are really rich in biologically rich and productive places and provide habitat for wide diversity of plants and animals and other species. This is a development on the market right now. You can buy these properties there for development. Unfortunately, all the natural elements that make these properties attractive to buy are then casualties of development. So they will be all mowed over to clear space for lawns and houses and open views. This is in Kelowna. Available right now. I downloaded it from the real estate page. And bulkheads and lawns displace all the natural vegetation. Here is a photo I got, a diagram of a hard bulkhead. It prevents animals to move on to our upland. Scouring, I'm not sure if scouring is a problem here in the Okanagan as much as in the oceans, but it scours and it results in different movement of water and sediment. So here is a bulkhead. In addition to eliminating all of the shallow water habitat, they're also quite awkward and nearly dangerous for people to access to the water. So I think people just don't necessarily think about this beforehand. So there are actually very positive alternatives and solutions now available. And I've got a little booklet here. The Seattle had started several years ago developing these green shorelines, bulkhead alternatives for oceans specifically, because with the climate change and the rise in water, they're trying to make residents make their foreshores withstand 1 meter of water, sea ocean high rise, whereas we don't necessarily have that problem on the fresh waters. However, pollution and all these other elements that I mentioned earlier, ecological impact, are big drives behind it. So they've done lots of work at Lake Washington, and Seattle had actually, Washington and British Columbia had now developed this credit rating guide for green shores for homes. Currently, these are only developed for saltwater oceans and lakes. The rivers and streams are still are on the radar, and they're going to be applying for funding. It has a voluntary credit rating. It's developed on a similar model after LEED green building standards. People signed up for it. They design their new foreshore, and then they install it, and after it's installed, they actually get a third-party inspector, and if it's approved, for now, they only get a certificate. But they're actually working on some kind of incentives in the future. So the main categories right now is the preserve and restore the shoreline processes, which is the movement of water and sediment that maintains healthy shorelines, because immobilizing bulkheads really disturb those natural actions. And then secondly, to enhance and maybe restore the habitats for both plants and animal communities. And then prevention of pollutants runoff is a big thing. Reducing cumulative impact, because even though these houses and residential lots are small, if you add them all together, many small footprints really add up to the very big footprint. Okanagan Lake is managed, so we don't necessarily get too much of this flooding. So the emergent vegetation, it's maybe harder to install in these restoration projects unless you end up with a property that has a natural pole or some kind of a water source. But and then it goes in the uplands, and up here we recommend that you just use regular water-wise gardening principles that people would use in any other garden. So to cut pesticides, to cut hybridized high water usage plants. But there are certain building setbacks and then vegetated buffer. So how big should our vegetated buffer be? We always say it should be as large as you can accommodate it. Unfortunately, in the olden days, people had permits to build houses like this close. So to create a vegetative buffer here would be much more difficult. People don't like trees either because they block the views. It shows the shade that the trees provide. And this shade, diffuse shade, is important for juvenile fish so they can hide, and shelters birds and bigger fish. And also the roots of these trees filter pollutions and contaminants from storm water. If you would to inherit a property like this with this vast lawn, unless you're using it, we don't see any purpose for it. People just do not like to block their views. There is actually a landscaping design practice of creating windows, enhanced views. Instead of just having it as a lawn, one could design it in such a way to have all this side here, because you already have a blocked view here with a cedar hedge. You could completely plant trees and shrubs on this side, and also on this side you could do. And then if you prune trees in such a way that you have views through the trees, like they're called window views through the trees. This one has a bulkhead here, so if you were to do edge planting here on the side for the shade and overhanging trees, one would have to watch what types of trees they're planted, because the bulkhead would suffer from it, like the cottonwoods, like you said, are the best trees, and Alison loves cottonwoods, would be the best trees to use. So these are now some examples from the Green Shore project. This house here was already sheltered and protected, so they actually had natural sand. So they just restored it with emergent vegetation. They created levels of the garden by big boulders to protect it, and then it's mass planted but with lower vegetation, so the views are preserved, and these trees were limbed up so they can still have their views. Naturalized bulkheads. The reason those flat cement bulkheads are not good is because the water can't move through it. If you have these types of bulkheads, naturalized bulkheads with rocks, the water can kind of seep in. It's all about these permeable surfaces. People are recommending, instead of having asphalt in your driveway, to have permeable surfaces. So similar thing applies here, and then you can still have a little cove. So it's just looks more natural. Then we have a private cove. Again, here it's a gravel, and there is a bulkhead, naturalized type of a bulkhead, and then logs. If you use logs in your waterfront, they should be fixed so they don't get moved away. Here we have a naturalized bulkhead. This is a before photo of this property, and then this is what they created afterwards. Anchored logs on shorelines. This is another before picture of people having just this slopey lawn. They only removed partial bulk removal from here onwards, and they naturalized it. And it looks so much more friendlier for usage than climbing down this step across this lawn. This is just a close-up. But it's much nicer to sit here than, say, here. Nice restoration, I think, of about 80-meter section of the Penticton Creek. And it used to be just hard concrete. I think in the late 40s, there were flood threats, or there were floods. So for the protection, they channeled this creek. It's has huge problems. They have to fix it every year or so. So they decided to showcase the project, and they have actually put these river rocks. They're actually cemented in, so they're holding. And people that live in these neighborhoods, I went to the open day when this creek was open, say they can actually now hear water. When water was going like this, and it had really big fluctuations in velocity, and it just didn't provide any friendliness to the fish. And now people actually hear the water, and the fish have pools where it can settle and stuff like that. And then with oxbows, I wanted to use this example again of I would say, nasty holding of the shore. And here is a side look. Oopsie. So it's just like this concrete, it's a bulkhead that holds the water in, and it's just non-feng shui. As they say, it's for the soul, it's disturbing. And this would be a natural oxbow. So there are ways of restoring that. And Penticton Oxbow Friends had restored a tiny little section. I don't necessarily have a photo recently with native plants. So if you were to develop a restoration plan, of course, all the sites are different. You have to really assess each situation separately. But the first thing that you have to decide is what type of soil you have, sand, clay. Are you going to add peat moss? And then if you're going to mulch it, and then pots, plants that you would be using, would you be using pots? And you have different sizes. Pots, would you do live stakes? Live stakes are very successful, or bare root and burlap trees. And then you'd have to decide, the restorations are always better in spring or autumn. And then you, of course, depending when you're planting, you then have to watch those plants, water, weed, trim. The root systems are really important. This is just the reason I'm adding this slide here, just to see the Kentucky bluegrass. This is the root system of a Kentucky bluegrass. So that's why we have to water our lawns so much. If you think of some other native grasses, and of course shrubs and trees have that even more pronounced. I'm going to talk about plants to plant now. Of course, native plants are the best. Okay, Okanagan Xeriscape Association is a not-profit organization that has this amazing website. So the plants are organized in the both Latin and common name. Then they have height and spread. Water needs, okay, stop here. So the water needs, the plants are sorted by supplemental water that they need to to natural precipitation. So one raindrop only needs 7.5 centimeters of additional water per year. 2 raindrops, 10 to 18 centimeters, or 3 raindrops, 20 to 28 centimeters. So the way the plants are sorted, and we're going there now, and then of course light, full sun, part shade, light and water zone, bloom time, color, foliage, and then special features. And some of them are very aggressive spreaders, but occasionally you do want aggressive spreaders, especially on like creek restorations and things. So we're going to go directly into the plant database now. Okay, and then we're going to search. We're going to do one search. So let's go by special features first. So features, native plants to the Okanagan. And then we're going to go, say, in water section. Let's tick all 3, dry, low, and medium. But you can then go. And now let's click search. So go further to the bottom. So these are all the native plants that are listed. And they're all for, so let's go and see one that is good for waterfront, say. Let's go up. Let's say chokecherry, even though chokecherry does attract the caterpillars, and I would not necessarily recommend that you plant it. So this one is full sun, and it only requires this much additional water per year. Let's see there. It attracts pollinators, it's edible, it's food for birds, and it's native. And it's available at the sagebrush nursery. Let's do another one so then you guys can do this at home. Let's see which other one we can select. Well, elderberry is a really good one. Well, so you see in a full sun it requires less water, part sun. I don't know why she has that. Anyway, attract pollinator, is deer resistant, it's edible, it's food for birds, and it's native. And again, sagebrush nursery or wild bloom nursery. So so you can really use this database for native plants as well as other drought-tolerant plants that are suitable for the Okanagan. Okay, and then I have a few photographs just in case we would not be able to get to the database. Our black cottonwood. We are planting 150 cottonwoods in 10 different locations in the Okanagan, and we do need volunteers. But yes, black cottonwoods are really important trees for wildlife, for First Nations, culturally, and for the newcomers that come to the Okanagan. They are garbage trees. People don't like them. The limbs fall off. They create this cotton seed like that is blowing. So people don't like them. Here it's a cottonwood forest that we don't have that many left. And these are the Okanagan native shrubs that would be totally appropriate to plant on the water's edge. And we did give you a list of all the plants that are suitable, so you can, they're in your packages. There's a Cornus stolonifera. It's got beautiful red color. It's interesting all year round. It produces flowers in the spring, berries in the fall, and then in the winter, it's an all-season plant. Some gardener once told me that plants are like tenants. They should give you interest all year round. Otherwise, there's no point having them. You don't want the rent just for a couple of months. Ocean spray, which is actually one of my favorite plants. It's loaded with pollinators. It just buzzes. Of course, Saskatoons. I love the Okanagan when Saskatoons are flowering because you don't notice the hills or just kind of look these grayish brown hills, but when the Saskatoon flowers, it's all white. And then Mahonia. Some of these are running. This one would be if you are having it, depending what style of gardening you have. If your garden is quite ornamental and you don't like wilder things, this one may need root containment. And there are materials available that you bury in the ground and then you plant plants that are running so they don't escape further than you want them. Mock orange. Mock orange, I would say, is completely underused in the Okanagan's gardens. It's so beautifully scented and it attracts butterflies. And that black hawthorn. This is the elderberry, juniper, and snowberry, which is a runner too. That one you have to watch. But snowberries and wild roses look so beautifully together under the poderosa pines, the red and white in the winter. And then they have these berries, so it would be... Okay, and then willows. We have so many species of willows. And of course, willows are really important for monarchs to roost in them. And these two are having sex. You see, there's two of them here. And then I actually was successful in, this is in Similkameen River showy milkweeds and willow areas that are vast. And I actually managed to catch a pregnant wild female, and these are my babies here. Fortunately, it doesn't show so well. I actually ended up getting 53, and we released them. It was a part of a trial to see where do Okanagan butterflies go, Okanagan monarchs go? Do they go to California or Mexico? But we never retrieved any of mine, so I don't know. Anyway, so this is, oopsie, I've got some extra slides at the end that I'm not going to talk about today, but yes, thank you. This presentation has been sponsored by Royal Bank Blue Water Project and Regional District, of course, and City of Penticton Help. So thank you all.